Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. This is Scott's Comics Retro Review. And what I'm doing is, this channel is dedicated to reviewing comics for people who are looking to get into comics and don't know where to begin. I'm going to offer some good selections. Or they're into comics and they just haven't read what I'm currently reviewing. In which case, please pick up the book. You should enjoy yourself. Anyway, I'm really excited about doing this video. I had meant to do this video much later on down the line, but because the movie was coming out, I saw this trade come up and I placed it on order and I had to wait for it to come in. And then, I'm kind of a little busy with things. I was a little behind, so it's taken me this much time to actually get this video out. But I'd been wanting to do this video from the beginning of my channel. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Captain Marvel because the movie's coming out, Captain Marvel, starring Carol Danvers. And the original Captain Marvel was this fella here. You see it says Shazam. There's also a movie coming out called Shazam that's going to have this character in it. But he started out back in 1940. He was on an issue called Thrill Comics and also Flash Comics. And he was called Captain Thunder back then. And why it's in black and white is going to take a while to explain. I don't really want to get into it here. That's a whole nother story. But issue 2, the name was changed to Wiz Comics, and his name was changed to Captain Marvel. And this was back in 1940. And what happened was that Superman, who was king of the superhero comics and sold more than anyone else, Captain Marvel comes along and starts outselling him. So, of course, DC, the guys who own Superman, sue Fawcett Comics, who owns Captain Marvel. Their claim was that a young boy who says the magic word Shazam and gets these, turns into an adult in a red suit, gets these magical powers, is a copy of an alien who comes from another planet in a blue suit and has all these powers. In either case, DC actually won the lawsuit. And my memory on this is a little bit shaky, so you can correct me down in the comments below if I'm incorrect. But my understanding is that Fawcett Comics turned around and went on appeal, and they won the appeal. But by that time, it was the mid-50s, and superhero comics were no longer selling. So Fawcett just kind of shut the whole thing down. And then later, DC ended up buying those books. So buying Fawcett Comics out. So you may be asking, well, where's Marvel Comics? Well, back then, there was no Marvel Comics. There was no company called Marvel Comics. We did have a company. This is the first book by Timely Comics, and it's called Marvel Comics #1. This is the cover, and this is a redo of the cover. Just so you know, they reprinted the whole first issue, but this is a redo of that cover. So you didn't have a Marvel Comics. They changed the name to Marvel Mystery Comics later on with issue #2. And it was Timely Comics that was publishing Marvel Mystery Comics, but there was no Marvel Comics the way we know it today. And then the beginning of what's known as the Marvel Age of Comics, which was also tied into the Silver Age of Comics, we have Fantastic Four, which was their flagship title at the time. And back then, as you could see, there's a little MC on the cover. So they weren't, even then, they weren't called Marvel Comics. They were still Timely / Atlas. And Stanley was working out all the details. But eventually, the first one that I could find in this book is Marvel Comics. And I don't know if that's the first time Marvel Comics ever appeared anywhere, but that's the first time in the Fantastic Four. So now we have a Marvel Comics. And the trademark to Captain Marvel was still owned by Fawcett, who was not publishing any comics anymore. They let the trademark lapse because they weren't doing comics anymore. And then Marvel Comics came out with Captain Marvel. And this is what he originally looked like. He was in a green and white costume. And he's an alien from another planet called Kree, the Kree planet. And he was, his name was actually Mar-Vell, but humans couldn't really pronounce it, and they shortened it to Marvel. And this was in the late 60s when this character came about. And, like I said, he was in the green and white costume. And I wanted to show you this real quick, which was, they just call this a missile base, a rocket base. And we're introduced to Carol Danvers, who in the late 60s, is the head of this security on this missile base, which is not something that's lightly. That tells you that she's a strong, independent woman. And she climbed her way up in man's world to head of security of the missile base. And then later on, Captain Mar-Vell changes his costume to what is more familiar. And this character, by the way, is going to be in the movie. I'm sure they're going to change things. I'm not sure how much, but I do believe they are going to change a lot. In either case, by the way, gorgeous Gil Kane artwork. I talked about why I like these black and white so much, but there's the villain, and he's got the psych magnetron machine, and they go through the fight, and in the course of the fight, the machine is getting ready to explode. And Mar-Vell grabs Carol, and he starts running out, and the machine explodes. And I didn't want to get too much into that, but I wanted to, that's going to come up later on, so I wanted to bring that up to you. Now, as far as Mar-Vell is concerned, the Kree warrior, I would say that you get the life of Captain Mar-Vell and the death of Captain Mar-Vell, and you should have pretty much the whole story. I don't think you really need to read too much else, although I like the other stuff, but this video is not about this character. By the way, these stories are by Jim Starlin. I don't think you can get it like this in this format, but I believe Marvel re-released it as the life and death of Captain Mar-Vell in one book. And check the links down below. I'll be able to tell you if that's happening. Now, the life of Captain Mar-Vell happened in the early to mid 70s, and the death of Captain Mar-Vell happened in early 1982. Well, in between that, we have this book comes out, and this is the early to mid 70s, and it's Ms. Marvel, and you see her with why? I don't know why, but yeah, she's in a bare midriff, which is, when you're a kid, you don't think about it too much, but she shows up, and she's this powerful woman, obviously very strong, and we find out that it's Carol Danvers. And that scene that I showed you about previously in Captain Mar-Vell, when that machine blew up, what happened is that the energies kind of passed through Mar-Vell's body into Carol's body. And that's how she got her powers. I'm sure they're going to change it for the movie because they've changed it in the comics. But in either case, she's Carol, who used to be the head of security of the missile base, is now the editor-in-chief of Woman magazine. That tells you, fiercely independent. She's her own woman. She's very strong and powerful. And people will have you believe that this didn't happen in the 70s, but it did. Here's the proof. Anyway, later on in issue number 9, they did away with the bare midriff and the back. And they just, kind of filled it in. She still had the bare legs. But okay, whatever. I mean, I could see a woman going bare legs if she's as powerful as Ms. Marvel, but I could see why you wouldn't want to do that anyway if you're going out to fight. Anyway, they did another costume change on her into this other beautiful costume. So here we have a beautiful woman, very intelligent, very independent of her own book, and she's in a gray costume. I could see possibly why they would want to change that, maybe fill in the legs here and fill in the arms there. But it's a great costume design by Dave Cockrum. Anyway, I love Carol, and I kept buying her books through the years, Carol Danvers books, because I love her. She's a great character. Here we have her. Meeting. Oh, Spider-Man. But we have her meeting. Binary. Oh, I didn't grab all the books. I'm sorry. No wonder I'm confused. But we have her meeting here. Oh, look, these are all the different costumes and identities she's been in, Carol. And here we have her meeting up with Mar-Vell, who at this point was already dead. And then this is a remake of this cover. It's sort of a tribute to the original cover here by the death of Captain Mar-Vell. Anyway, I wanted to show you those just to show you how much I love Carol Danvers. I think she's a great character. And then before Captain Mar-Vell, after Captain Mar-Vell died, they wanted to preserve the trademark. So then Marvel came out with Monica Rambeau as Captain Mar-Vell, created by Roger Stern and Johnny Romita Jr. I'm going to get into this trade in another second, but I wanted to show you something else. What happened is that they brought along a character who was the son of Captain Mar-Vell. And he came along and he took the name from her, Monica. I mean, he literally said, since I'm the son, I'm going to take the name. And she was like, okay, you can have the name. And I only grabbed it because no one was using it. And written by Peter David, who I'm going to do videos on, it was a great series. I really liked it. Anyway, he was soon out of the picture. And instead of giving the name back to her, which I'm going to get into in a second, they ended up giving it to Carol. Now, understand that I love Carol, but I don't know why she ended up with the Captain Mar-Vell name. As Ms. Marvel, she was, in my eyes, she was great. Anyway, they redesigned her costume, and I have no problem with the redesign, except for her helmet, which puts her hair into a mohawk. I'm not sure why they would do that. We're going to see in the movie, but you could see how much I love Carol. I think that really looks ridiculous. I'm sorry. Why would you put the helmet on when your hair's like that? Put the helmet on and your hair would do that. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But in either case, you could see I read the books because I like Carol, but I stopped because I didn't like the stories. There's no other way around it. Anyway, you see here she's meeting. Marvel did a series called Generations, and here she is meeting the original Captain Marvel, or Marvel's Captain Marvel meets the new Captain Marvel. And we have here the new Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel, when she first appeared, I saw this. It wasn't this exact picture, but it was the issue number 1. And in my comic book store, I walked up to the manager of the store and I said, "Why are her hands big?" And his response to me was, "She's Marvel's first Muslim female superhero." And I didn't understand what one had to do with the other. I didn't want to get into it with them, so I just dropped the subject. But apparently she's a 16-year-old, 15, 16-year-old who her powers are shape-shifting. And if she's a shapeshifter, why is she making her hands big? The first shapeshifter that I'm aware of is Plastic Man from the 40s, and then you have Mr. Fantastic from the 60s, and then you have Elongated Man from the 60s, and none of them, do this. And I can't see a 15, 16-year-old girl doing that with her hands. Anyway, what happened with Monica is she first shows up in Amazing Spider-Man Annual, okay? And they tell her story. She, look how beautiful she is, right? But they tell her story, and she is a lieutenant in the Harbor Patrol in New Orleans, which, again, it means that she's accomplished something. She's not like the low-level person there. She moved up to lieutenant. And they show her that she's got a brain in her head. And she's tough because she's standing up to her boss. And then she gets her powers. And then she joins the Avengers. And not only does she join the Avengers, but she leads the Avengers. Who will lead the Avengers? And she gets the job. Now, the problem the reason why she's no longer doing that has to do with office politics. And the office politics is the writer of Captain America was also the editor of the Avengers, and he wanted Captain America as the leader. And he told the writer of the Avengers what to do with her as a character, and he was also her creator, and he said, "No, I'm not going to do that." So he was fired or let go or quit, or however the story goes. And the new people that he brought in ended up, making her do that. She had a fall from grace, and she ended up in books like this, Marvel Divas. And she's had several name changes through the years. Here's the name changes right here. Spectrum, Photon, Pulsar. In either case, when this Captain Marvel disappeared, she should have gotten this title back, not Carol. Carol should have remained as Ms. Marvel, and she should have gotten, if you want to update her costume, go ahead, that's fine without the helmet. And then, you could take the other Ms. Marvel and make her Ms. Marvel. But in either case, this should be who the movie's about, Monica Rambeau, the one that's coming out now. I hope you liked the video. I had to get a lot in a short space of time. Please comment below, like, share, subscribe, comment, and check the links down below. I should have things for everything. Have a great day.